So we did a story the other day where I showed you guys an article that floated the theory it's possible Biden has Parkinson's. And they listed the symptoms. You know, we compared what the symptoms are on paper to what we can see in public. And then, you know, Michael Moore wrote a piece, and in his piece he speculated it might not be Parkinson's, it might be mini strokes. It is possible it's just standard, normal, age-related decline, but it does seem like it's happening pretty quickly. He seems like a different guy, even compared to 2019. So, look, the speculation, it feels gross to do. It feels kind of slimy, but at the same time, this person's the president of the United States. They're the most powerful person in the world, and he wants another 4 years. So, perhaps it would be more irresponsible to not talk about these things. Well, guess what? As much as I felt a little icky covering that the other day and talking about it, if anything, maybe I was too soft and too kind. Because here we have a video of a neurologist goes on NBC. NBC is the Biden Defense Network. That's what it is. NBC is the Democrat Party Defense Network. And they asked this doctor, who, by the way, is a Democrat, what they think is going on with Biden. And this segment is devastating. Listen to this.
I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board-certified neurologist. He sees patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in this
yeah,
room,
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks. Have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part of that, too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemma node dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordotically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. That's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold, hypophonia. A small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this. So, yeah,
but I also know, tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? It's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diaghnose, actually.
Right.
But it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I would say about this.
Right.
It's just like this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on if you're just presented with like hallucinations. That could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms, right, slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you, if you had, and I know you have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that? I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything or no?
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out for any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's.
What does that mean, med boarded out?
I mean, the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are.
So you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House that are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
And then, a lot of people have called for a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding, retrieval, doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonism. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
What do you do in this test?
A lot of things. So, for example, they may have you say as many words as you can in a minute that start with F. Block building, retrieval. I may say cup and have you recall it 3 minutes later. Trail drawing. These are done with a professional PhD in neuropsychology. It has nothing to do with psychiatry. And we can tell if you have vascular.
It's 4 hours long?
4 hours. It's a full day. We tell people bring a snack. It is a full day. And so not the MOCA, which was a bedside test that President Trump took. These are tests that are screening tests. They don't rule in. If you do great,
there's no way to sort of lie in this test to sort of ace it, even though you're sick.
No way. This one will come out in the wash. For example, if I do the bedside exam to an accountant and I ask them what's 100 minus 7, even the worst neurodegenerated patient, if they worked at a high education level or something like that, is going to get that right. But in the 4-hour test, it will come out.
Finally, you said you're a Democrat, you're a doctor. You sound like you're frustrated with what the White House is saying.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, because, I'm an American before everything. And I look at it and say, when I used to see Russia, Soviet Union, North Korea, when they just make outrageous things, like when North Korea can't keep the lights on and they say, it was some faulty power thing. I kind of hate that kind of stuff. They had 4 years, my own party had 4 years to find, this was a wreck in slow motion. And they had 4 years to find out of 350 Americans, one person that could take the place. And here we are the day before school trying to do the homework and replace a guy who's got a neurodegenerative disease.
Dr. Pitts, we thank you for joining Top Story. And again, I know you've never examined President Biden. I want to say you've never spoken to President Biden, but you're going off what you've seen on television and interviews and all of your expertise. Yeah. Doctor, we appreciate that.
Again, this is NBC. This is the Biden Defense Network, the Democrat Party Defense Network. You could tell the host was trying his best to soften it there and, hey, let's put in all the caveats and let's hedge and let's say, well, you never really saw him in person, so take it for what it's worth, et cetera, et cetera. That's a pretty brutal analysis there. I mean, you guys tell me. You guys tell me, man. Now, the story came out that a Parkinson's expert visited the White House 8 times. Then the White House turned around. Karine Jean-Pierre was like jousting with people in the press briefing room. And basically they were kind of actually going after her over this report. And she was like, no, he only saw a neurologist 3 times since he's been in the White House. It happens once a year. This is perfectly normal. But again, the Parkinson's expert visited 8 times. Now, what I've seen on Twitter from Biden defenders is, look, he just signed a bill not that long ago specifically about Parkinson's. So maybe that's why. But if that is the case, the White House hasn't said that. Now, they went on to release a longer letter basically trying to say exonerated. It wasn't because they were looking at him for Parkinson's. But based on what this guy's saying here, he should be. He should be looked at for Parkinson's. Because again, he said he could diagnose him from across the mall. He said, quote, it's a fact that he has Parkinson's. And if he has Parkinson's and it's untreated, the symptoms are going to get worse and worse and worse. And this is something that he clearly wants to hide, because if they actually get a formal diagnosis, then that is the nail in the coffin for him to rule for the next 4 years and continue running. And so it's almost like they're shoving their head in the sand on purpose to say, well, see no evil, hear no evil. If we don't actually get the proper diagnosis, then we'll just ride this out. But if you're Jill Biden, if you're Hunter Biden, if you're one of Biden's top staffers or a friend of his, how can you just sit there? How can you watch a segment like this and say, no, there's no concerns and we actually shouldn't get him checked further? And then, by the way, there's also the possibility they have checked him, they know he has it, and they're just lying about it. Maybe they are treating it, right? Since there's so much, since there have been so many lies and so much gaslighting over this, all the speculation is on the table. But watching that segment, I went from genuinely being like 50-50 on it to now, I think if it's not Parkinson's, he has some sort of neurological issue. I don't think it's just standard age-related decline. And again, if you don't agree with that, I'd say really take it more up with this guy than with me. Because all I'm saying is everything he laid out there, it seemed kind of convincing to me. It seemed kind of convincing. But I'm curious what you guys think. Post below. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.